Hey everybody, we've got a special guest today. This is Luna. I just wanted to talk about the Switch 2 today, but my wife is off on a business trip, and Luna is very needy, and she has been barking at the door as I try to record this. So instead of just leaving her out there to be sad and lonely, she can be with me. So the whole video, I'm gonna try to get through this holding her. But yeah, Nintendo had their direct for the Switch 2 a few days ago. This is the first time I've had a chance to record my thoughts, but I think, from what I saw, I was pretty impressed. It exceeded my expectations. I thought it was just going to be like about the same as a Steam Deck, and from what we saw in the leaks and from the teaser trailer, we already kind of knew what it was going to look like. But I think it came out better than what I expected. So let's talk about the hardware and talk about the features, and let's get right into it. The one of the most notable features, at least in my opinion, is the screen. So the original Switch screen was 6.2 inches LCD, and it was 720p. I think 60 hertz, and the OLED was 7 inches, where the actual tablet was not really any bigger. I think technically a couple millimeters wider or something, which is why some accessories didn't work. But this is 7.9 inches and it's a 1080p LCD screen. But this is capable of 120 hertz. It's also capable of HDR and variable refresh rate. And we can get into, what those things actually mean in another video. But those are things that you don't normally see in a screen for like a handheld computer or a gaming device. HDR maybe, but variable refresh rate is pretty crazy to see in a Switch 2. Now, I know a lot of people were a little upset. Maybe not upset, but maybe a little disappointed that it's not an OLED. The Switch OLED was really nice, and the OLED screen in the Steam Deck is wonderful. I have an OLED Steam Deck, and I can't praise it enough. It looks great. If you're playing games that have a lot of like dark areas, like Hollow Knight especially, the contrast between the dark areas and light areas on an OLED is just absolutely insane. And the HDR in this LCD screen will make up for a lot of that, maybe not all of it, but I think if you're coming from the original Switch and you go into a Switch 2, it's only going to be better in every way. And unless you have them side by side with another OLED device, like you're probably not even going to really notice that there's a huge difference. But I think it's awesome to see a 1080p 120 hertz screen just in general, just those specs is pretty crazy. Even to add that some of the games will be capable of 120 frames per second to match that refresh rate, and that's just crazy. But yeah, that's the screen. It's awesome. From what I understand, Nintendo is saying that even though the Switch 2 is physically larger because of that screen being larger, it didn't make any thicker. It's the same exact thickness from what they're saying as that Switch 1. So it is taller and wider, but not at all thicker, which is really impressive to be able to get all that in there without making it thicker. It's going to be a lot more storage in the Switch 2 than in the original Switch. The original Switch had 32 gigs. I want to say the OLED had 64 when it launched, which is like really not a lot. And 256 is still not really a lot. It's what came in my base model Mac Mini, and this thing is almost full just from having just some basic stuff on it. So 256 is probably not a lot if you're going to be playing a lot of big games like Cyberpunk 2077, which is going to be on Switch 2. And, but you can upgrade it with micro SD express cards. Now, these are not regular micro SD cards. In fact, Nintendo confirmed you will not be able to use standard micro SD cards on the Switch 2. You'll have to use micro SD express. They're faster. They're much better technology, but they're also a little bit more expensive because it's new. And from what I understand, 256 gigabyte cards are the only ones that are currently readily available. So, some news source that I don't remember, I can't really reference it because I don't remember where it was from, did say that there are companies, I think maybe Lexar and a couple. So if you're willing to wait, you can wait for those. But it's really cool to see that they're utilizing newer technology to be able to increase the capacity of the Switch without having to or the Switch 2, without, sacrificing the speed. The Joy-Cons, so we've seen the Joy-Cons in the trailer, in teaser trailer, and in this direct. They are physically larger to match the size of the screen, and they're matte black with accent colors. So the right one has the blue accent colors like in the original Switch. I wish I had hands to go grab my original Switch for reference, but I'll be putting like trailer footage on the screen in between me talking, so you'll be able to see that on the screen. But they are physically larger. They're matte black with red and blue color accents depending on which Joy-Con, and they connect to the Switch with magnets. Now, the magnets, I guess, are really strong. Some people who are actually able to go to the Switch, the live events where they got to play the actual Switch 2, they tried to just pull it off without pressing the button first. And while some people were able to actually pull them off, they said it took a considerable amount of force to pull the Joy-Con off just by pulling straight out. So one of them actually, I believe, held it upside down, held it by the Joy-Con, and it didn't separate, which is good news. It means the magnets are strong and that it's doing its job properly. And the button to release them literally just like has a little thing that shoots out and like pushes it, so kind of like gives it a little bit of leverage to push it out from the system, and then that allows you to separate it, to pull it off from the system a little bit easier, which is really cool. There are larger, the SL and SR buttons are larger because those are actually the metal that the magnets in the system connect to. So they are made of steel and they are larger, so they're easier to press. There's HD Rumble 2, which just means the rumble is more accurate. People are saying that it's like what Nintendo originally advertised HD Rumble to be, or what they expected it should have been. The joysticks are larger, but they did not say if they're Hall effect sensors. Very likely, maybe not, but it's going to be a different module than they were using in the original Switch, so hopefully it's not going to have the same issue with drift that the original Switch had. Let's see what else we have. Mouse functionality. So it's got a little optical sensor on the side of the Joy-Con, and you can just put it right on a surface and use it like a mouse. And from what I'm seeing, people who have had first on hands-on experience with the Switch during these, either the influencer event or the public event, they're saying that in the games that support mouse mode, a lot of them you could just literally put the Joy-Con on its side and immediately it goes into mouse mode. You don't have to go into a menu and be like, I'd like to use a mouse. You don't have to like enable mouse support. The games that support mouse mode, you just put the Joy-Con on its side and immediately it goes to mouse mode. So we were playing Metroid Prime 4, which is compatible with this mouse mode, and you just playing normally, and when you get to a point where, hey, I want to use mouse mode, you just literally put the Joy-Con on your desk, on your leg or whatever, and the reticle on the screen changes, and you immediately can go right into it, which is super intuitive. It's something that I kind of didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be that easy. I expected to have to like press a button combination or like go into like a special menu and then say I want to use mouse mode and then be able to do it, which makes it a lot easier. Some games like Civilization 7, using the mouse, you could do most of the functionality of the game just with that one Joy-Con and mouse mode, which is really cool. And so, there's some people on like TikTok and stuff that said, I will never use this, but I don't know. You might. There's a game, Drag X Drive, I believe it's called, or Dragon Drive. It's the one that's the wheelchair basketball game where they actually have you wheel the mouse, like this on a surface and you click on the trigger button and you like this, and it actually like is like you're pushing the wheel forward on a wheelchair, and you can use both Joy-Cons in that way, and you can turn by doing opposite directions and stuff. It looked really cool. It looked like more like a tech demo from what the footage showed than really like a full game, but it did look like it would be pretty fun. Some people are saying that they had starting to get sore in weird spots in their arms because they just weren't used to like that motion when playing a game, doing that much. The dock for the Switch 2, it's pretty similar to the Switch 1 dock, right? Why don't fix anything that's not broken, right? So you put the Switch 2 in the dock exactly the same way as you would in the Switch 1 in its dock. The only real difference is that the the board inside and the chip inside can output 4K. And it has a fan in it so that it will keep the dock and the system a little bit cooler, which is nice. And I can only imagine that when you plugging the Switch 2 into the dock, it's getting more power and then outputting, being able to process better graphically, that it's going to create some heat. So it's nice that it has a fan in there. I mean, otherwise it's really the same. It's got an HDMI, it's got USB ports, it has a, Ethernet port. I mean, otherwise it's pretty much the same. But they showed off the charger for it, the one that you use with the dock and one that you can just plug into the Switch, and it really just looks like a standard USB-C charger with a wall brick. And so something that we knew for a while for the original Switch is that it's not USB power delivery compliant, where USB-C power delivery is like it's an electrical standard essentially. So when you plug in a charger, it has specific voltage and amps, like amounts that it's allowed, and it goes by like a very specific standard. So the system and the charger match in their settings, and no matter what charger you use, it'll stage down or step up the voltage or amps depending on need. And the Switch one was not compliant. It used a very specific setting, and I believe it was something like 15 watts, 2.6 amps or something. And that was the reason why a lot of third-party docks were bricking Switches in the very beginning. It's because they were pumping out electricity at different wattages and at different volts. And the Switch just really wasn't designed to handle anything other than the exact wattage that the official charger had. So if it is a regular USB-C power delivery charger, then you won't have to worry about just using one that you buy online from like Ugreen or Anker or any of those other brands that are a little bit more inexpensive. And you can get ones that are, higher wattage, and it will just step down to whatever the Switch 2 requires, which would be nice, because if you already have those things, then you don't have to worry about buying any extra charging hardware. I suppose we could talk about the accessories as part of the hardware, because there's some kind of interesting accessories. There's a new Pro Controller, which looks exactly like the Switch 1 Pro Controller. Let's be honest. The top part where the shoulder buttons are and like the top part of the controller, it's all white instead of the whole thing being like a kind of translucent black color or dark grayish, like a charcoal gray, which is kind of cool. And there's the C button in the center to be able to activate game chat. But if you already have a regular Switch Pro Controller, Nintendo has said that pretty much every Joy-Con and the Pro Controllers they'll all connect to Switch 2 and be able to play. Joy-Cons obviously won't connect to the Switch, but you can connect them to the Switch 1 Joy-Cons won't be able to actually physically attach to Switch 2, but you can charge them otherwise and then connect them Bluetooth to Switch 2 and still use them in the same exact way. An accessory that they showed off, actually let's stick with controllers for just a second. They have a GameCube controller for the GameCube games that are going to be on NSO exclusively for Switch 2. A lot of people saying that the GameCube controller feels pretty similar to the original GameCube controller, or maybe more like the one that Nintendo released for the Wii U for Smash Bros. Which I haven't held a GameCube controller in a long time, so if you put this one in my hand, I probably wouldn't be able to tell. But it's really cool that they have this controller, and you can buy it, and it has all the buttons that you need to be able to play regular Switch 2 or Switch games anyway. So you can use that too. If you want to play regular Switch games with a GameCube controller, it'll work, which is really cool. There's a webcam, and I'm not sure what the thought process was with this webcam, but it's a $50 webcam, which is actually pretty reasonable for a webcam. The quality of it doesn't look so great in the trailers, but from what they're showing off, it's I guess a really wide angle webcam, and the people are putting it on their TV stand and sitting at their couch, and it's showing we can talk about game chat in another video, but there's the game chat screen showing them with a artificial background removal, and the quality of the image of the people it's kind of grainy, but like they are sitting pretty far away, and it is a wide angle, so it's probably digitally punching in a lot to be able to do that. So you will lose some quality there. But for $50, it looks like you're getting more than what you'd get if you spent $50 on a webcam, just a random webcam. But I guess this is probably only going to work with Switch 2. You plug it into the top of the Switch 2 tablet, and then you play. There's some games that you can play with, like Mario Kart and stuff, where you're doing game chat. It'll actually show your face in the game chat window, which is kind of cool. Not necessarily something I care too much about getting myself, but we'll see. The Mario Party Switch 2 upgrade has some extra mini games that do take advantage of it, so that could be fun. It looks like it offers kind of like the same functionality that the Xbox Kinect did, where it can detect where your body is in a 3D space, and like if you punch up into like a question block that's sitting on the screen, like it'll detect that you're actually hitting it in that 3D space, which is cool. I don't foresee it being used in too many different things. But let's talk about another thing I found really notable is that for the games themselves, we're looking at 3 different types of games that they say that can be played on Switch 2. So you have Switch 2 games, which are designed specifically for Switch 2. You have Switch 1 games that are backwards compatible, and then there are Switch 1 games that are backwards compatible, but you can also purchase an extra upgrade to make them they perform better. You can get better graphics, essentially. And some of the games come with extra content, like I was saying. So Mario Party has an extra bonus DLC. Kirby and the Forgotten Land has extra content. But some games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom just have a performance and graphical upgrade. But if you have NSO with the expansion pack, both Zelda Switch 2 upgrades are included in that. Now, I was going to say free. It's not technically free because you are paying, but it is included in that. So if you have NSO with the expansion, you don't have to pay extra for the Tears of the Kingdom or the Breath of the Wild Switch 2 upgrades, which is kind of cool. And so something that is really cool and something that I did not expect were performance and quality modes. Like, that's not a thing that isn't already available in some particular cases for Switch games. Some games, I believe, like Unraveled and like a couple other games, like they specifically have quality mode and performance modes built in, but there are going to be ones that are like system specific too, where in handheld performance mode, you can get up to 720p, up to 120 frames per second on handheld, which is crazy. Quality mode would be up to 1080p and 60 frames per second, which is not something you would expect even at all, but that is possible. In docked mode, it's 1080 and 120, and then 4K and 60, which I don't think anyone expected any Switch 2 games to hit 4K 60, but Metroid Prime 4, they said 120 frames per second, 1080p on docked performance mode, and 4K 60 in the quality mode for docked. And people have shown off some gameplay footage from those events that they were at, and games like Mario Kart World didn't stutter at all. Metroid Prime 4 played like you were playing a PC shooter on a high-end PC. And just, it's insane to me. Nintendo's usually got like a gimmick, and this year the gimmick is we actually tried with our hardware this time. Although the problem is that it does make this more expensive. Now, before I talk about the price, I want to say one more thing about the quality and performance modes, and that I hope some games can break free from the hard set performance and quality modes and be able to do more. Like if it's a indie game, or like Hollow Knight. So they mentioned Silksong for like 2 seconds in the direct, but Silksong is a game that's not really graphically intensive, and I can imagine that you'd probably be able to get 1080 120 handheld on Hollow Knight, on a game like Hollow Knight, or a game like like any indie game really, like Stardew Valley. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Stardew Valley could, if the system could actually do it 4K 120 on handheld mode, really, because Stardew Valley does not require any specs at all to play well. But since the screen is only 1080, I imagine Stardew Valley could also do 1080 120 and not drain your battery. But I wonder if that's even a possibility, or if Nintendo locked those modes down to where it could only do those like 720 120 and 1080 60. But we'll have to see. I would love to see it though. I'd love to be able to do Hollow Knight at 1080 120, and if it does that, I will absolutely buy Hollow Knight Silksong on a Switch 2 versus a Steam Deck, which I did not ever think that would be how I felt about it. But yeah, and so the thing that we need to talk about at the end of this video is the price. And the price is a big fat question mark at this point, because the original price shown on Nintendo's website and all the pre-orders and stuff was $450 for the console, $500 for the bundle that includes digital version of Mario Kart World, which is already kind of pricey. And to not get political at all, I live in the United States, and President Trump just announced a bunch of new tariffs that are going to take place the exact day that Switch 2 pre-orders were supposed to happen, and they have become delayed, in the US at least, until they can assess how much it will impact Nintendo importing systems to sell them. And it's how do I say this without being over political, but it sucks. It sucks that, it's being Nintendo, they don't make a profit off of their systems, and so they'll either have to eat some or all of that cost, figure out a way around it, or something, or we'll just have to pay more. And that $500 was already something that I had to stomach. I had to talk to my wife about it and be like, I was expecting $400. It's gonna be like $500, and we agreed that it would be okay. But if it ends up being like $650 or $700, if it ends up being $700 for the Mario Kart bundle, I'm not gonna be able to afford that. I won't even touch that. And that makes it tough, because I'm in a position that I'm lucky that I can afford to buy one at $500. But there's a lot of people that aren't, and they're definitely not going to be if it goes any higher than that. And I understand that everything in the Switch 2 is very high end, and that's probably why the price is so high initially. And a lot of us thought that maybe tariffs were involved in this price that we were given, but it turns out it is not. So we'll have to see. I'm going to try to be optimistic about it. I'm not going to say too much else about it, but I'm going to be optimistic about the price. We'll see what happens. Worst case scenario, Metroid Prime 4, which is the big game that I wanted to play for Switch 2, is still a Switch 1 title, and then I can pay a little extra to upgrade it later. If that happens to be what happens, then that's how it's going to have to be. We'll see. But I tried to record this video a couple of days ago, and that news about the price and about it being delayed really, really just messed with my excitement. I feel like it stole that excitement from me, where I was still living on the hype of that direct, and then that just took it from me. But I want to thank Nintendo Life and Woodhawker and Bob Wolf and any of the people who made Switch 2 videos and talked about it with excitement. That really reinvigorated me to make this video about how excited I am for this, despite any of the other stuff. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this whole video. I just kind of went on a rant for 25 minutes. I'm going to cut this down a tiny bit, but I just wanted to have my full thoughts, try to cut it as little as possible. Also, you get this beautiful pup here. She's not going to show her face because she's not like socially awkward or anything, but she's just going to be snuggly. Let me see if I can turn her a little bit. Hello. Hi. She's very needy. especially today. But if you stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button because that really does help this channel. It tells YouTube this is a great video and that more people should see it. And if you're interested in seeing more videos from me, you can click on my face. It should be over here in this corner somewhere, and you can subscribe through that. And otherwise, you'll see you in the next one.